Hey there, amazing fans! Before we dive into today's drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, welcome to another relaxing moment with Sugar Stories. Grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. The rain poured in thick sheets over the narrow streets of Kano, washing the dust into rivulets that ran between the cracked pavements. Aisha clutched her mother's old shawl tighter around her shoulders as she hurried from the factory where she worked. The night was darker than most, but her heart was heavier still. Her father had collapsed again. The text from her younger brother had come while she was still at the looms. Baba fainted. He can't breathe. Doctor says surgery needed. Please hurry. She had no money. Not enough even for a decent meal, much less a hospital surgery. For years, Aisha's family had struggled, trapped in the same cycle of factory wages and debts that never seemed to end. As she cut through a dimly lit alley, tears blurred her vision. She pressed her palms to her face and whispered through clenched teeth, "God, please, what do I do? How do I save him?" That was when she heard it, a low, ragged groan. Aisha froze. Just a few steps ahead, under the flickering light of a broken street lamp, a man lay slumped against the wall. His white shirt was soaked red, his hand pressed desperately against his side. His face was pale, and his lips moved with words she could barely hear. "Help me." Aisha's first instinct was fear. This city was not safe at night, and a bleeding stranger could mean trouble. But something about his eyes, dark, wild, yet pleading, rooted her to the spot. She crouched beside him. "Sir, what happened to you?" His breath rattled. "Stabbed, they tried to kill me, please don't let me die." Aisha's heart pounded. She looked around, but the street was empty. No cars, no one to call for help. The nearest hospital was miles away, and even if she got him there, she knew what the doctor would say. Payment first. She pressed her hands over his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me," she whispered. His eyes fluttered. "There's the way. My blood type, rare. Only ritual transfer keeps me alive till hospital." His voice cracked. "I need you to bind with me. It's the only way." Aisha's brows furrowed. She had heard of it once, an old emergency practice, whispered about in medical circles. Risky. Intimate. It meant sharing more than just blood. It meant giving of herself in a way no one could undo. Her hands trembled. She thought of her father gasping for breath back home, her brother crying for help. And here was this stranger, dying before her. "Please," his grip tightened weakly on her wrist. "Don't let me die tonight." The rain fell harder, masking the sound of Aisha's sobs. In that moment of despair, she made the choice. The sacrifice. Moments later, under the storm, her life was bound to his. When Aisha opened her eyes again, dawn was breaking faintly through the cracks of the alley walls. She sat up groggily, the shawl around her damp, her heart pounding with confusion. The stranger, he was gone. She scrambled to her feet. The place where he had lain was empty, except for a faint smear of blood and something glinting on the wet ground. A heavy gold ring, engraved with a crest she didn't recognize. Her hands shook as she picked it up. He had lived. She had saved him. But he hadn't even stayed to say, "Thank you." Clutching the ring to her chest, Aisha whispered, "Who was he?" Her father's cough echoed in her memory, pulling her back to reality. She had sacrificed everything for a stranger, and now she had to face her own family with nothing to show for it. But fate, she didn't know, had only just begun weaving its cruel, beautiful web. The days that followed the storm were some of the hardest of Aisha's life. Her father's condition worsened, and the doctors at the public hospital gave her the same cold response each time. "Without surgery, he will not last. Bring the money first." But money was the one thing Aisha did not have. Her meager factory wages barely covered rent and food. She begged the landlord for mercy. She pleaded with relatives for loans, but doors kept shutting in her face. At night, she clutched the gold ring she had found in the alley, the only proof that the stranger she had saved was real. She would stare at its strange crest, a lion carved into its surface, and wonder who he was. Sometimes she hated him. Sometimes she prayed for him. Always, she asked herself the same question: why did I give up everything for someone who disappeared? One afternoon, as she walked past the busy marketplace, her steps slowed at the sound of a radio announcer's excited voice blasting from a speaker stall. Breaking news! Idris Al-Hassan, the long-lost heir of the Al-Hassan Empire, has returned to the city after vanishing for nearly 3 years. Aisha's breath caught. She turned toward the shop, eyes widening as the announcer continued. The Al-Hassan family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in Nigeria, has confirmed that Idris narrowly escaped an assassination attempt last month. Sources claim he is recovering well and preparing to reclaim his inheritance from his late father's estate. The stall owner held up a newspaper. Aisha's heart nearly stopped. The face staring back at her from the front page was the stranger from the alley. His dark, piercing eyes. His sharp jawline. The same man who had clutched her wrist and begged her not to let him die. The newspaper headline read, "Heir returns. Idris Al-Hassan claims his birthright." Aisha staggered back, almost dropping her bag of groceries. People around her were murmuring excitedly, but all she could hear was the pounding in her ears. He was the heir? The dying stranger, the man I gave myself to, was Idris Al-Hassan? That evening, fate twisted the knife deeper. Her father's cough turned violent, blood speckling his lips. Desperate, Aisha rushed him to the hospital once again. She pleaded with the receptionist, but the woman only tapped her nails against the desk. No deposit, no surgery. That is the policy. Aisha's knees gave way, and she sank onto the floor. Tears blurred her vision. She had sacrificed her innocence, carried the weight of shame, and still, she was helpless. But then, a voice cut through the cold silence. Low, commanding, unmistakable. "Put the surgery on my account." Aisha's head snapped up. Standing in the lobby, tall and powerful in a tailored suit, was Idris Al-Hassan. For a moment, she thought her eyes were deceiving her. He was not the broken, bloodied man from the alley. He was every inch the heir the papers described, confident, imposing, untouchable. The receptionist straightened instantly, bowing her head. "Yes, sir. Right away." Idris's gaze shifted to Aisha. His expression faltered, as though recognition struck him like lightning. "You," he whispered. Aisha scrambled to her feet, rage and relief colliding in her chest. "You vanished. You left me there with nothing." His jaw tightened. He glanced at her father on the stretcher, then back at her. "You saved me that night. I remember everything." "Then why didn't you come back?" Her voice cracked. "Do you know what it cost me? Do you know what I lost?" For the first time, Idris looked shaken. His eyes darted to the gold ring clenched in her hand. "You kept it. I had nothing else to remind me you were real." A long silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Idris exhaled, his shoulders lowering slightly. "I owe you more than I can repay. And I will repay it." But he paused, his gaze hardening. "I need something from you too." Aisha blinked. "What could you possibly need from me? You have everything." "No," he said sharply. "Not everything. My family is circling like vultures. They want to strip me of the inheritance my father left. The board demands stability, proof that I am fit to lead." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I need a fiancé. Someone to stand beside me. Someone who makes them believe I am untouchable." Aisha stared at him, horrified. "You're asking me to pretend to be your fiancé?" "Yes. In return, I'll pay for your father's surgery. I'll protect you. You'll never know hunger again." Her throat tightened. The offer was everything she had prayed for, yet it sounded like a chain. "You think my sacrifice that night was a transaction?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "You think you can just buy me?" Idris's jaw clenched. "I'm trying to give you power, Aisha. But if you'd rather walk away, then walk away." She looked at her father, pale and barely breathing. She looked at Idris, the man whose life was tied to hers in ways she still couldn't understand. Her lips trembled as she whispered the only answer she could give. "I'll do it." The Al Hassan estate was nothing like Aisha had ever seen. Marble floors gleamed beneath chandeliers, and gold-trimmed arches rose into ceilings so high they made her dizzy. Servants bowed as Idris walked past, his presence commanding silence wherever he went. But the moment Aisha stepped in beside him, the air shifted. Whispers rippled across the grand hall. The Al Hassan relatives lined up like hawks, their eyes narrowing at her simple dress, her trembling hands. Among them was Layla, Idris's cousin, elegant, polished, and venomous. "So," Layla said, her voice dripping with disdain, "this is the woman who caught our heir while he was vulnerable. Clever, isn't she?" Aisha lowered her eyes, swallowing the lump in her throat. Idris's gaze hardened. "Show her respect. She is my fiancée." Gasps echoed across the room. But Aisha's heart sank. The word fiancé was meant to silence them, not to honor her. She felt it in the cold weight of his tone. Days turned into weeks. Aisha endured endless humiliation. At dinner, Layla would smirk and say, "Tell us, little factory girl, how do you plan to host galas? Do you even know which fork to use?" Other relatives sneered, whispering loud enough for her to hear, "She's nothing but a pawn. He'll discard her once the board is satisfied." But at night, when the mansion grew quiet, Idris's mask would slip. Sometimes Aisha caught him staring into the fire, his eyes filled with something raw, loneliness, perhaps, or guilt. One evening, she gathered her courage. "Why me, Idris? Why not choose one of them? They'd gladly stand beside you." His jaw tightened. "Because they don't know what it means to fight to live. You do. That night, you didn't just save my life. You gave me back my will to fight." Her chest tightened. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire heir, but the broken man she had held in the rain. Then, everything changed. Aisha woke one morning feeling ill, her hands trembling as she held the result of the hospital test. She was pregnant. Her mind spun. She remembered the storm, the sacrifice, the way fate had bound them that night. Tears filled her eyes. "How will I tell him? Will he cast me out?" But before she could decide, Layla struck. At a charity gala, in front of flashing cameras and powerful guests, Layla grabbed Aisha's arm and sneered, "Shall we tell them the truth? That you trapped him with a child?" The room fell silent. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Aisha froze, shame burning through her. But before she could speak, Idris stepped forward. His hand rested firmly on her shoulder, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Yes," he said loudly, "she carries my child, and she is the only woman I will ever marry." The crowd erupted. Some gasped in shock. Others applauded. Layla's face twisted in fury, but Idris's eyes never left Aisha's. In that moment, she saw it. The truth he had hidden behind pride and power. He wasn't just protecting her. He meant every word. Later that night, under the soft glow of the garden lights, Idris finally confessed. "They tried to kill me, Aisha, my own blood. That night in the alley, I thought it was over. But you gave yourself to save me. You gave me a reason to survive. And now, with you and this child, I have a reason to live." Aisha's tears fell freely. "I thought I lost everything that night. My dignity, my future. But maybe I found something too." He cupped her face gently, his strong hands trembling. "You found me, and I found you." The months that followed were not easy. The family fought Idris at every turn, but the bond between him and Aisha only grew stronger. Her father's surgery was successful, her brother returned to school, and slowly, she began to believe in the life she once thought was beyond her reach. On their wedding day, as Aisha walked down the aisle in a simple white gown, she no longer felt like the poor factory girl who had stumbled into an alley on a stormy night. She was the woman who had saved a stranger, and unknowingly saved herself too. Idris's vows were simple, but they made the world pause. "You gave yourself in desperation, not knowing who I was. But I give myself to you today, knowing exactly who you are, the only one who ever truly saw me." Aisha smiled through her tears, whispering back, "And you are the only one who ever gave me hope." The crowd rose in applause as they sealed their vows with a kiss.